Hello, healthy and safe communities section. I'm Dr. T, and this is a very special episode of Dr. T's Cookbook of Awesomeness. You may have recognized me from the 2020 North Dakota Colorectal Cancer Roundtable annual meeting, or perhaps the 2014 Dakota Conference on Rural and Public Health, or maybe one of my many YouTube videos. Today, I'm here for a very special episode to teach you the technique of dry brining and then roasting your holiday turkey. During the holiday season, millions of people each year experience a sad and disappointing turkey dinner. We've all experienced this, and maybe it was you to blame. But thankfully, I'm here to teach you the art of dry brining your turkey. This technique gives you the two things that you really crave from your turkey dinner. One is moist and tender meat, and two is a brown and crispy skin. Delivering on these two promises will make sure that you are the hero of your socially distanced holiday gathering. So without further ado, let's make something awesome. The first thing that you need to do is pat your bird dry. You need to remove all the excess surface moisture, and there may be quite a bit of it. And as you may have noticed, this is actually chicken, not a turkey, because I'm only cooking for two. Once you've got the bird dry, you want to check inside and make sure you've removed everything from the body cavity. We don't want to be leaving any extra giblets in there. After that, we're going to spatchcock this turkey by removing the spine. Spatchcocking, it's a funny term, but basically what it means, we're removing the spine and then we're going to splay it out so that the turkey is in a nice, somewhat even layer. This does two things. First, it shows the bird who's boss. Secondly, it allows for more even cooking. Now that you've gently removed the spine, you can go ahead and throw this away, but you can save it and make a very luxurious homemade turkey stock. Now the final step in spatchcocking is to splay this turkey wide open. We're going to pull it apart here, flip it over, and we're going to apply some not so gentle pressure on this breastbone. You might hear a little bit of a snap. What we're really trying to do here is just make sure that this is going to lay down as flat as possible. To create our brine, we only need two ingredients: coarse ground kosher salt and some baking powder. Now the ratio we're going to use is 1/4 cup of salt to 1 tablespoon of baking powder. You may need more or less than this depending on the size of your bird.
but you can easily mix up more or less using this same ratio. Now we're just going to give our salt and baking powder mixture a little mixy mix to make sure everything is consistently well incorporated. And we're just going to start to drizzle it over our chicken here and make sure that every part gets a nice even coating. Make sure you get every nook and cranny. And don't be afraid to get your hands a little dirty and rub it in just a little bit. And don't forget the underside. Coating the bottom side is just as important as the top. You might actually get more flavor seeping through the bottom than you do from the top. Next, we transfer the bird to a rack on top of a sheet pan. We want the skin to dry out, so we want adequate airflow around this. We'll put this in the fridge for 12 hours at least and up to 3 days.
While our bird is chilling in the fridge, let's talk a little bit about the science behind dry brining. A brine, in simplest terms, is just a solution of salt and water. And I know I'm talking to a room full of nurses right now, and no, you can't use a bag of saline for your brine. I'm just saying, you can try it, but I wouldn't recommend it. The common misconception of traditional wet brining is that the uptake of water into the meat through the process of osmosis is what gives the turkey the plump and juicy texture. In fact, this excess water retention causes your turkey to become waterlogged and dilutes its flavor. The real magic is in the salt, which helps to break down certain proteins. During the cooking process, these proteins contract and squeeze out all the moisture, resulting in a dry abomination. Now, dry brining allows for the salt to draw out the turkey's own moisture. The salt combines with that moisture to create a natural brine and then gets reabsorbed into the turkey. You get all the benefits of a traditional brine without the watery mess and without the tasteless failure of a meal. A dry surface also contributes to the Maillard effect, which gives you that deeply browned and crispy skin and gives you that nice oven-roasted flavor. Now let's skip forward in time a bit and get this bird a-roastin'.
After a full day in the fridge, you can see the skin is very dry and desiccated, so it should get nice and crispy. We've also tucked these wings underneath the thighs. We do this because they're very thin and have a tendency to burn, so tucking them underneath will help them from burning too quickly. We've preheated the oven to 425. We'll place the bird inside the oven and cook this to 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the size of your turkey. And then we will reduce the heat down to 325 degrees for the remainder of the cook time. To avoid overcooking and have maximum juiciness, we need to cook this to a specific temperature, not necessarily for a specific time. We want to get this up to 155 degrees and then take it out, let it rest, and let the carryover cooking bring it up to the 165, which is generally considered to be a safe cooking temperature.
Okay, folks, I think I have to address the elephant in the room. I think you've all realized by now that the skin on my chicken was not as deeply browned and crispy as I had promised you. Now, the reason that is not something that you're likely to encounter, but I'll tell you exactly why this happened. The short answer is that the chicken just cooked too fast. But the reason it cooked too fast is very unique to my oven. Now, if you are paying close attention, you may have noticed that I have a 3/4 inch baking steel in the bottom of my oven. This baking steel weighs almost 30 pounds and adds considerable thermal mass to the oven. And if you remember, we preheated our oven to 425 degrees. That means that baking steel also heated up to 425 degrees. But because of the large thermal mass, when we turn the oven temperature down, the baking steel is still going to retain all that heat. And we slid our chicken directly on top of that baking steel. So even though we turned their temperature down to 325, the baking steel continued to stay very hot and was radiating heat up from the bottom and cooking our chicken from underneath. So while the chicken as a whole benefited from that thermal mass and cooked through faster, the skin on top was not getting that direct heat, so it was not browning up. So the inside of our chicken actually got done before the outside crisped up. Now, even though we didn't get that skin quite to where we wanted it to be, the most important part is the meat itself, and we delivered on that in spades. So let's look at how juicy and tender it turned out.
So here's our chicken, and before we serve it, we're just going to carve it up, and let me show you how to do that. We're going to quarter this chicken, beginning by removing the thighs and legs in one big piece. As you can see, it just basically fell right off. This is so tender and moist. I basically just shearing through the skin and it comes right off. Now, I attempted to take off the wing here, the drumette and the wing, but the wing just pulled right off again. It's just so tender. And as you can see, there's plenty of moisture left in this chicken. This is not dry at all. To remove the breast, we're going to cut straight down, and then we're going to come down at a slight angle to slice the breast off in one big piece. Here we are at the end, Healthy and Safe Communities section. I hope you've learned something new, and I hope you try this during your holiday celebrations. This chicken is quite definitely the most moist and tender bird I've ever had. You can cut through this easily with a fork. So give this a try at home, and feel free to check out my other cooking tutorials on my YouTube page. So until next time, stay awesome.